Hey there, Retro Games fans, this is Andy C from Pieces of 8-Bit. You may have noticed something a little bit different. Yes, I have bought a new microphone. I've been struggling with my sound levels doing these recordings for some time, so I figured that it was probably about time to get something a little bit more decent. So hopefully the sound quality is a little bit better, so we will see. Today's video, we're going to be taking a retrospective look. So it's more of just a kind of a look back than necessarily a full-blown review. But as you know, I've got the Master System in for my A Month With event, and as also, if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know that I haven't really played on the Master System a great deal, so it's something that sort of passed me by a little bit in younger years. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to have a look back at some of the games and see what it's like to play. Now, obviously, it's a Sega system, so the most iconic aspect of Sega probably is the Blue Hedgehog. I'm talking about Sonic, and there's lots of clues around here that was what I was going to talk about. So we've got Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on Master System on here, and then behind me over here we've got the original Sonic the Hedgehog, and I've also got some other little bits, my Lego build that I did a little while ago, which you probably can't see too well on the camera, and my little Sonic cushion that goes on my chair just for effect in the background there. So the way it's going to work is that I'm going to review each of the Sonic games. So there were basically about 5 of note on the Master System. I'm going to review the first Sonic. I'm going to look back, I should say, on the first Sonic, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic Chaos, which was a game that was exclusively on the Game Gear and the Master System. I'm going to be looking at Sonic Spinball very briefly, and then we're going to talk about Sonic Blast, but I'm not going to review it or really spend too much time on that one, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. So with the first two, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I'm also going to be having a quick look at how they compare with the 16-bit versions on the Megadrive, and kind of talk a little bit about which ones I prefer. I'm going to talk over the top, so I'm not doing a gameplay. I'm not going to play the game and then talk. Basically, what I've already done is recorded some gameplay, and then I'm just going to kind of talk over that. So you won't, you'll be blessed with not having to look at my face in the corner of the screen for the whole time. You'll just be watching. You'll just be listening to what I'm talking about, and just hopefully enjoying watching the old games. For those of you who have not played the Master System versions before, you'll see that there are quite a few significant differences, yeah, we'll explore that. I'll talk through it as the sort of gameplay goes on. So yeah, strap in. Obviously it's Sonic the Hedgehog, so it's going to be super fast moving. Yeah, let's crack on with the games, and yeah, I'll tell you what I think as I go. Right then, let's dive in with the very first Sonic the Hedgehog. You'll notice straight away that it looks kind of familiar. This looks a lot like Sonic on the Mega Drive. A lot of you will be more familiar with that one. A lot of people had the Mega Drive version. It was really, really iconic. You'll notice straight away off the bat, I think the things that strike me are probably the colours don't seem quite as bright and vibrant. But it is still very colourful, and there are key differences obviously in the graphics. So there are, you don't have a parallax background. So parallax background is basically where, as Sonic moves, the background will also be moving as well, at a slightly different speed to give that feeling of depth. It's obviously a lot more detailed. But let's not forget here that the Mega Drive, or the Genesis for our North American friends, I'll just keep calling it the Mega Drive from now on, because otherwise I'm going to forget and I'm going to have to keep saying it twice. Basically, that's a much newer console. So the Mega Drive is a 16-bit console, a much newer generation of consoles, much more capable, much more powerful, much better sound, much better graphics, more colours, all of those things. The Master System at this point is, getting on a bit. This is 1991 that this game came out, and the Sega Master System is starting to get towards the end of its life. And fair play to Sega, they're releasing a AAA title here. I don't know whether they knew this was a AAA title at the time, but they're releasing a AAA title on a console which is 16-bit and probably, 8-bit. What am I talking about? They released it on a 16-bit console, so their latest one, they're going to want you to buy the Mega Drive, but they're still obviously supporting the Master System, which is really good. Don't tend to see that. Well, I say that. Do you? I suppose you do, really. I mean, we're still seeing PlayStation 4 games, for instance, in a world where we've got PlayStation 5, but I think this is a really good show that this amazing IP gets released on both. I think what's different as well is the fact that, you know, nowadays when you see a game on the PlayStation 4 or you see a game on the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4 version comes out, they're practically the same. They might be remastered, but they're ultimately the same game. This is a totally different game. It was a different developer. So, you know, that was obviously an investment by Sega to build something completely different for the Master System. So we'll talk a little bit about the gameplay in a moment. Obviously, you can see Sonic navigating his way around here. And you'll notice this is quite a different game layout to the first one. So the colours and the music and obviously everything else are all very familiar here. But yeah, it is a little bit different. So in terms of development, both games came out in 1991. So that's the 16-bit and the 8-bit version. This is developed by a company called Ancient, who developed this for Sega. Sonic on the 16-bit system was actually developed by a company called Sonic Team, obviously both published by Sega, so to give them that same look and feel. Now, the company that built this actually was founded by a chap called Yuzo Koshiro, who was a composer, and you'll recognise his music in here, and obviously in the 16-bit version as well. It's very, very iconic. Yeah, so this was a big hit. Now, in terms of gameplay, one thing you'll notice that's particularly striking between this version and the 16-bit version is that the 16-bit version is a lot faster, and when we come to play the Megadrive version in a little while, you'll see what I mean. You sort of forget. If you go back and play the Master System version, you sort of forget. This version was much more about exploration, and as you can see on the screen at the moment, exploration is something that I'm struggling with here, because you'll probably notice I've gone round this little loop about 3 times now. I couldn't work out where to go, and it's because there's a jump pad off to the left. You'll see me find it in a minute. Where you actually sort of leap through the floor, and it's not obvious. And I did it initially and didn't get the angle right, so I thought, oh, that's obviously not the way to go. It is the way to go, and I kept going up here, and you must be able to get up this way. There it is. Just saw it in the top corner of the screen there. That's what I need to hit. And I can imagine a few of you who know this game well probably screaming, going, "Oh, just go on the pad. Why are you going around in circles?" But that's actually an important difference. Oh yes, I found a Chaos Emerald while I was at it, which was quite cool. Yeah, I didn't know that was even there. So I should have styled that out and just said, yeah, that was what I was looking for. I just couldn't remember where it was. Not that I couldn't figure out what to do next. So yeah, it's very different in as much as, you know, when you play the Mega Drive Genesis version of this game, it's a lot quicker, it's a lot more fluid. Obviously you've got the loops, you'll notice that they're not present. You can't do the crouch and spin, but then you couldn't do that in the first 16-bit version either. And it's one of those things you sort of forget when you play Sonic as well. So if you play an older version when you can't do that, and you want to sort of just give yourself a little quick boost, you're like, oh yeah, I can't do that one here. And you sort of have to, when you're destroying blocks, you have to sort of take a bit of a run up and then crouch into a roll, and he'll sort of smash his way through the blocks there. So I'm just going to wait now. This is a bit where I go, it must be this way. It absolutely must be this way. There we go. Finally, everybody's going, oh my goodness me, how long did that take you? And that's the thing as well, it doesn't matter. There's no particular speed associated with this. And the reason why this game is obviously so different in terms of the pace is very much down to the actual hardware itself. So, you know, as I mentioned before, we are talking about hardware that is a lot older. And so the pace of the game and the style of the game, this sort of exploration approach to it rather than the fast-moving, really quick side-scrolling part is not present. You know, this is much more. This is probably more similar to Mario in some ways than it is to much newer versions of Sonic, and obviously Sonic on the 16-bit system. So there we go. All right, so that's the first. Was that too? Yeah. So I just want to have a look at this bit. This I think is really cool. I actually didn't know about this until I played this game. That there's this sort of pinball section to it, and I wanted to keep it in because I think, bearing in mind the age of this game, this is a couple of years before, 3 years I think before Spinball appeared. So yeah, I think that was absolutely the inspiration for the Sonic Spinball game that came out, which is really quite fun. at least for some time. I'll talk a little bit about Spinball later on, but this has to have been the inspiration for that. There's lots of different end of level things and things that you spot as you go. One of the things I noticed as well, of course, is that while I think about it, is that there are no checkpoints. So the levels tend to be quite short, much more exploration based, and there are no checkpoints. And this is the other thing. So we're coming up to a boss level here, which I kind of screwed up. Well, I didn't screw up actually. The emulator crashed. So yeah, you don't get any rings in the Master System versions. You don't get any rings, which means that if you die, as you will see in a minute, it's a one-hit job and you're out. So yeah, you got to jump on this Robotnik a couple of times. There we go. It's actually not too bad, but I totally screwed up, and you will see it freezes in a second, which is somewhat of a nuisance. So yes, I mentioned I'm playing this on an emulator, and that is largely because, there we go, freeze. That is largely because it is difficult to get my Master System 2 hooked up. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So yeah, and then it unfreezes, and then I died. So no rings, so no opportunity there. So let's go and have a look at Sonic on the 16-bit Megadrive / Genesis. Alright, so here we go. This is so iconic, right? This opening section here of Green Hill Zone. Yeah, this is some of my earliest memories of Sonic. Oh, I think it was just going into demo there. Yeah, so some of my earliest memories of that. So a couple of things to note here, and I'm not going to review the game, so we'll only talk about it for a minute or two. Obviously, the speed of this game is so much higher. So Sonic will start to gather up a bit of speed. Obviously, this is the very first level of the first game, so it's a little bit slow, so a lot of players are quite sheepish at this point. But as we start to get into the game, Sonic will speed up, and he'll be done in a matter of seconds. This game, as I mentioned before, also came out in 1991 on Mega Drive and Genesis. I said I wasn't going to say both, I'm just going to do it anyway. And this was by Sonic Team, and you can see there we've got the loop-to-loops, we've got more colours, and we've got that parallax background that I spoke about, and you can see how that works. You can see as Sonic is moving, the background is moving at a different speed, and that gives that real sense of depth. Look how quickly that was, 46 seconds into the end of that level. And although I think the levels are themselves, actually probably if you walked it, they probably are a little bit longer, but yeah, they get completed very quickly. And obviously these early stages of the game, oh, look at that, absolutely rookie. These early stages of the game, the levels tend to be a bit shorter than they are later on. So when you get into like things like Battery Zone and stuff like that later on, or Chemical Plant, I can't remember what it is, level 2 on this one, you'll see that. So there we go, that's Sonic comparison on the 16-bit. I can't believe I just did that again. So Sonic 16-bit on Mega Drive and Genesis, and you can just see the difference in the consoles and the power of the Genesis versus the power of the Master System. And that is not a criticism of the Master System at all. I think they did a great job at bringing Sonic to that platform that was, by this point, right at the end of its life. So let's go and have a look at Sonic 2 on the Master System. Alright, so, well, let's just watch this intro now. So, completely different game. Interestingly, with Sonic 2, this was created by the Sega Tech Institute on the 16-bit systems, and it was developed by a company called Aspect, I think, for Aspect for the Master System and for the Game Gear. So, a different company involved this time, and from what I can glean and what I've heard, there was very little interaction between the folks that were working on Sonic 2 on the 16-bit systems and this version of Sonic. And you can see it straight away. And obviously when I put the Sonic 2 for the 16-bit systems on in a moment, you'll see the differences. Now this version of Sonic, I actually remember playing this, and I think at the time, this would have been sort of mid-early 90s. I remember playing this version of Sonic, and I didn't know to start with that Sonic 2 on the Master System and the Game Gear was different to Sonic 2 on the Genesis / Megadrive. So I was a little bit puzzled by this because I always thought, I'm sure I've played Sonic 2 before. And then when I played this would have been the first time I played Sonic 2. And then I came back and played Sonic 2 years later, and I was like, I'm sure I remember a bit with a minecart. And the other thing was as well is that I didn't think that I knew anybody that had got a Game Gear. I thought that I'd played Atari Lynx, and actually it turns out it must have been a Game Gear that I played on way back when. I mean, we're talking 30 odd years ago, so I can surely be forgiven for my memory not being so clear on that. But I definitely remember playing this, and I remember this being really, really difficult as well. So this game came out in 1992. And as I mentioned before, totally different company that built it. And the gameplay, again, very, very different. Obviously, the fact that this is a completely different game, so the music is different, the level is completely different at the start here with the introduction of this sort of underground level. This is actually really, really hard. I struggle with this, especially on the Master System. I think I found it a bit easier to play on here on the emulator and on the actually on the Master System itself. But yeah, I think when I played it on the Game Gear, and I've played it subsequently on the Game Gear as well, because I do own this game for the Game Gear as well, it seems more difficult for some reason, despite the fact that it's exactly the same. I don't know whether that's got to do with the controls, or the responsiveness of the controls, or the screen, or what, I don't know. But I found it a lot trickier on the Master System to get to grips with. Sorry, on the Game Gear. Sorry, to get to grips with it on the Game Gear. So, yeah, and yeah, obviously much slower approach to the levels. The levels are a bit longer in this as well, a little bit longer, I would say, than they are in the first one. And we're gonna have a look at the boss. I think we go all the way to the boss on this one, and so you can get a feel for that. So yes, that is Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the Master System. I quite like this game. I think it's quite fun to play, and it is quite challenging. I'm trying to remember what the next level is. I think the next level, yeah, I think I got quite stuck on the next level. So let's skip ahead to the boss level, and we'll have a quick look at that, and then we'll have a brief look at level 2. Oh, we're going to see the boss level anyway, so I may as well just leave it running. I think the next one's the boss level, as we'll find out in about 2 seconds. And then we'll have a quick look at it on the 16-bit system as well, just to get a side-by-side comparison. So where are we at? 3, Underground Zone. Yes, I think this is boss level. Yeah, I think there's a lot of the minecart thing going on here. And then there's a big old jump. I actually really struggle with the boss level on this. Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. Oh, here's the thing about the spin, look. So I can't do the little sort of speed up spin. Now, by this point, on the 16-bit systems, you could do the spin. So you could crouch down and then do the speed up spin thing, and you have to do that sort of run up and then roll. It's a little bit it's a bit tricky if you don't know it. If you haven't played the game before, it's a bit tricky to work out where to go there, because it's not all that obvious. If you're not a Sonic fan, or this is the first time you're coming to it, you're like, what's happened there? We are Robotnik. I mean, he could have just let Sonic go in the lava there, surely. That would have been, he hates Sonic. Why would he capture him to put him in, as Austin Powers would say, in an easily escapable situation and then just disappear? So you just have to dodge the ball on this one. And on the Game Gear, I've really struggled with this, and it's just about timing. You don't have to move; you just have to jump at the right time. But if you miss, you'll notice up in the top left-hand corner, I have no rings, and there's no opportunity to get any rings. So obviously, if I was playing this on a 16-bit version of the game, I might have a couple of rings, and I'd lose a ring, and I'd capture it, and then I'd be okay. I think you have to do this about 5 times. I couldn't even figure out what to do to start with. It looks really obvious now I've come to see it. There we go. And that's it. That is it. That's all you got to do in that level. But I actually find the bosses really hard in these original 8-bit versions, largely because you don't have the rings. So you don't have that opportunity, that sort of like one hit and you're done. That's it, which makes it quite tricky, especially later on in the game. So there you go, releasing the little animals. That's become customary by this point. So there must have been some collaboration. there must have been a little bit of collaboration between the two teams, I should think. This is completely different, and this level has a little sort of paraglider thing, which is actually really fiddly. I'm pretty sure I haven't really got the hang of it yet, as you'll see in a minute. I think I struggled with this. Let me just see. Oh, yeah, great. There was a couple of rings got released that time. I think in the first one it's just one. Like I mentioned before, you just get one that gets released. Here we go. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Oh no, I'm pretty close to it actually. I was just going to say I'm going to skip ahead to the bit where he goes on the paraglider, but he's literally about to do it, I think. And then you'll get the idea, and then that will probably just have a look at the 16-bit version straight after that and see what we think. Yeah, that was annoying. I thought I'd got that little creature there. I don't know whether it had just respawned or whether I hadn't actually got it and forgot that I hadn't got it and then got caught by it. It does seem pretty good. It doesn't seem to respawn. You know, like in Mario, you know, where you sort of stuff just respawns if you go left in some of the earlier ones. Obviously in the original Super Mario Brothers, you couldn't go left at all. So yes. Here we go. So he's going to go down this hill now, and then he's going to hit the paraglider thing. And I think this first time I did it, I got it wrong. But again, maybe this was on purpose, because if you see what I did, oh, look at that. He's still got the invincibility thing, and actually the first, so yeah, it's not like an infinite pit at the bottom. And I think the first time I played this, I ended up down on the right-hand side, because I thought, oh, maybe that's where I'm supposed to go. And I was just sort of walking on this random bit of level that didn't seem to go anywhere. It was like game over, but yeah, it was weird. And because I'd sort of got that invincibility thing on, I think he'd sort of forgotten about it. That he forgot that he'd sort of fallen to the floor, if you like. Oh, yeah. It is a while now. So he's going to have another go. Going to reach over to the right-hand side. Have another go, and I think I got it this time. Let's have a look. But the controls, if you hit the buttons, you're done for. And I could never quite figure out what was going on. Oh, that's right. So this is pretty much, that's all there is for this level, actually. It's not a very big level at all. It's just a bit of figuring out where to go. And again, more of that exploration piece that we're getting used to now. Yeah, I think I got about 96 rings, which was kind of annoying, so I didn't get the extra life. I couldn't reach the other ones. So there you go. That is Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the 8-bit system. So let's have a quick look at the comparison with Sonic 2 on the 16-bit system just for a couple of minutes, and then we'll talk about a couple of other games and see what we think of those two. Okay, so here we go. Emerald Hill Zone. Rather than Green Hills, pretty much the same idea, very similar to the first level in the first 16-bit version, and straight away you can just see how different this game is. It's much more similar to the first 16-bit version of Sonic, whereas Sonic 2 on the Master System is very, very different in terms of the level style to the original. And at this point as well, I mentioned that you've got the ability now to do the little crouch and spin, the little charge thing, and the level design was just a little bit more advanced. There was more, yeah, you see some water effects and things there as well. It's just more of everything, really. More bosses, and another level check-in that didn't have a bonus level on it. It's like I recorded these and they just weren't happening. You see how quickly I'm moving now as well. Obviously more of that parallax background, which looks lovely, and just a lot quicker. I feel like there was more power-ups in this one as well, but don't quote me on that. So he's got the little sort of water bubble thing now, which means he can go under the water without being affected. But it sort of acts like a little shield to start with, which is quite a nice little feature. I'm not sure if that featured in the first one or not. I'm not entirely sure. So yeah, again, obviously much more similar to Sonic 1. So this game also came out in the same year. So this came out in 1992, and this one was created by the Sega Technical Institute, which is an unfortunate shortening. I'll let you work that out for yourselves. And yeah, there was very little collaboration with what was going on with the team that was building the Master System version, which I suppose is a bit of a shame. But I guess if you look at it, if you happen to own both systems, now of course the nice thing about the Megadrive and the Genesis was that you could get the little add-on cartridge expander, so you could basically pop the cartridge, this adapter on the top of your Mega Drive, and it will allow you to plug in cartridges for the Master System. So really what it meant was, if you happened to be lucky enough to own a Mega Drive in the early 90s, in 1992, then you could pop this game in there, and you could also pop Sonic the Hedgehog 2 from the Master System as well. So you got kind of 2 games, not for the price of one, because you have to buy both of them, but you got 2 games, 2 Sonic games that you could play that were completely different to each other, and a very different style. You know, as I mentioned before, this one's much more about running very, very fast, and the other one is very much about exploration, and very, very different style of game, and both really, really enjoyable as well. Just gonna have a quick look at the next level on this, because this is completely different. I mean, obviously this first level is pretty different to that underground level that you saw on the 8-bit version. So we're gonna have a look at. Oh yeah, I got an extra life. Look at that. I was actually not too bad at this game. I really like Sonic 2. I think, like I said before, I think this is probably my favourite. Although this level is quite tricky. There's a couple of bits on this, especially where you got to jump and land on some platforms, or you end up in like this sort of underwater kind of chemical thing. Yeah, it can be a little bit tricky, but it's quite a good level. I think it's which one comes next? If it's the, feel like it's a deserty one, like an Egyptian themed one. I think, I can't remember for sure. I know that is the case in Sonic and Knuckles, which, like I mentioned before, is also one of my favourites. But you see how quickly you're moving, and there's all these pipes just sort of whizzing around, and it just, again, like I mentioned before, this just wasn't possible to do on the Master System. So, you know, it's kind of know what to do well. Yeah, you know, I lose my rings there. I always lost on these things here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that is Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the 16-bit system. How did you think it compared? I think it is, I mean, obviously completely different games, but yeah, both bring their own sort of charm. I mean, you know, truth be told, I do prefer this 16-bit version to the 8-bit version, but yeah, I do like both of them. They're both great games. Let's have a look now at Sonic Chaos on the Master System. Alright then, so this is Sonic Chaos. Now this time round, this is 1993, we've got Aspect building this game again for us, who also built Sonic 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Master System, so there's another outing for them. This is not a game that saw a release on the Mega Drive. There wasn't a 16-bit version of this, so this was purely for this console, for the Master System, and for the Game Gear. Typically around this time we would see games appear on both platforms, both on the Game Gear and the Master System. I mean, the Game Gear, let's face it, the Game Gear, look how that was rubbish. Look how the Game Gear basically was a portable Master System for all intents and purposes. So I don't think there was a lot of effort to get games moved across from Master System to the Game Gear or vice versa. I really like this game. Now, obviously, I mentioned before about not doing the spin and it not being about speed and all those kind of things. But what's remarkable about Sonic Chaos is that they, you know, bear in mind now, this is 1993. So we're now talking about sort of 8 years after the Master System had come out. It's right very much at the end of its life now, and we've also quite a few years now into the Mega Drive. We're only in 1993, but only really a couple of years out from seeing the Sega Saturn. We've already got Sonic CD by this point, or the Sega CD or the Mega CD. So, you know, like for Sega to be investing still in the Master System at this late stage, I think is really cool. And actually, I really like Sonic Chaos. I think it got quite average reviews, but I think what I like about this is if you imagine that perhaps you've got an old, you know, mid-90s, you've got an old Master System lying around, you haven't really invested in any of the newer tech, but you're seeing other people that you know playing on these new super fast Sonic games. You know, he's going around loop-the-loops, and you know, it's very fast-paced, and you can do the little spin thing and all those kind of things. And you're thinking, well, that's a bit of a bummer, but I don't want to buy a new console to play it. Well, Sonic Chaos would sort of be the answer to your prayers, really, because this game feels a lot more like the 16-bit version of Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, it doesn't have, obviously, those colours and that parallax background I've spoken about a few times now. I totally screwed this bit. Look how many times I did that. I actually annoyed myself doing that. I was just like, do you know what, I'm going to leave you. And so, you know, there we go, loop the loop. Now, you know, we were all told that the reason why we didn't have that, there we go, it does a spin and a charge. You know, there's a lot more to it. Now, I think a lot more to this game that feels like the 16-bit version as opposed to the prior two versions on the, you know, the Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2 on the Master System, which were much more slower and much more exploration-y. So, yeah, I actually quite like Sonic Chaos. I think it stands up quite well. And like I say, although it got sort of more average reviews, it certainly got better reviews than Sonic Blast, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But obviously, there's no side-by-side comparison for this, because at this point, you know, we're starting to think about things like Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 on the 16-bit systems, you know, just a complete departure at this point. So this, I think, is, if I'm not much mistaken, Sonic Blast was not something that came out for us in Europe or North America. It was something that came out in Brazil. So for us in Europe and America, this was the last time on the Master System especially that we saw Sonic in a platformer. So, yeah. Great fun. So, oh, here we go. He's doing his boss now. I can't remember now at this point if I actually had any rings or not. I don't think I do. This boss is actually quite easy. Once you and I think obviously at this point, to any Master System players who've never played Sonic elsewhere, the whole spin charge thing was pretty new. So all you had to do was just spin charge this guy and hit him in the face a couple of times, and there you go. So it's quite easy to do. So there you go. That was Sonic Chaos on the Master System. One other thing to bear in mind here as well, you know, that whole speed thing, I don't know if you'll notice, I don't think it says at the end of this one, I think it said at the end of the last level, it gives you like a little speed rating and tells you how quick it was. I don't know what bearing that has. I honestly don't know how they'd come up with that number, because I'm pretty sure I wasn't running at 800 kilometers an hour, but it sort of gives, all of it's designed to give you this sort of illusion of speed. So there you go. And then into this sort of futuristic level, which is not dissimilar to some of the futuristic sort of levels that we've seen in other Sonic games as well. So there we go. That was Sonic Chaos on the Master System. So let's have a quick look at Sonic Spinball, and yeah, let's talk about that as one of the last outings, certainly for us in Europe and North America, of Sonic on this platform. Alright, so let's have a look at Sonic Spinball on the Master System. So there was a Master System and a Mega Drive version, both, as far as I can tell, reasonably similar in terms of the sort of gameplay. Obviously, graphically, the Mega Drive 16-bit version is much better, is much prettier. It's got sort of like a digitized scoreboard at the top and those kind of things. So there's a few of those things kind of reduced. This game doesn't feel quite as fluid as the 16-bit version, but it can absolutely be forgiven for that, given that it's on the Master System, which in 1993, when this game came out, is now getting on a bit in its years. Interestingly, Sonic Spinball was the inspiration for, well, wasn't the inspiration, there was a ride at Alton's House called Spinball Whizzer, which is still there now, and in, I think, 2004, I believe, well, I think that was when the ride came out. I think then 2010 was when the ride then actually was rebranded as part of an IP deal with Sega to call it Sonic Spinball. Yeah, it had all sorts of Sonic stuff added to it to make it feel like a pinball machine. It's one of these sort of steel spinning coasters that you see from time to time, sort of like a pre-packaged coaster that you see around quite a lot. So that was quite cool. Took its inspiration from this. I think it was in conjunction with a Sonic game that was due out around the same time. So not this. This was some years before. But yeah. So I think it probably just explains the sort of phenomenon that Sonic had even in the pinball games that were present at the time. So Yeah, not a bad little game. I wouldn't consider this to be proper Sonic, really. It's a bit of a gimmicky sort of a game. I quite like Sonic Spinball. Obviously, there are a lot of Spinball elements or pinball elements in a lot of the games as well. Specifically in Sonic and Knuckles, there's quite a good bonus level that you get that's quite sort of pinball inspired, which I really like. So that's Pinball. Spinball Wizard, that's the ride. Sonic Spinball, on the Master System. Okay, so this is Sonic Blast, and this isn't me playing it, this is just the demo at the start of the game here, and I mean, you don't need to play it to realise just how dreadful this looks. Look at the spin animation on it, the graphics, and bearing in mind that they've done such a good job of bringing Sonic to the Master System, later on in its life. It was very possible to do it well. And this game just was not an example of that. Now, I'm only going to talk about it shortly. The reason for that is twofold. One is because it's terrible, and it really is terrible. And the second is that this was not really something that we saw in the UK, in Europe, or North America. This was a game, it did come out on the Game Gear, so if you had a Game Gear, there's a good chance that you might have played Sonic Blast. But on the Master System, which is obviously in my month with series at the moment, this is not a game that we saw. And to be honest with you, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. First appearance of Knuckles and last appearance of Knuckles on the Master System. This was another game by Aspect. So Aspect produced Sonic 2 and Chaos as well. Chaos is so much better than this, even though it had average reviews. They just looks awful, and I get, I think I can see what they were trying to achieve with this game in terms of the technical limitations and really pushing the boundaries of it, but it just didn't pay off, and it was pretty much panned. I'm sure there are some collectors out there that will be looking for this version of I imagine the Master System version is probably quite hard to find. I would imagine you have to have it imported from Brazil, and then whether it will work on your standard European Master System, I don't honestly know. I'm not sure what the standards are out in Brazil, but there you go. So that was the unfortunate, sad last outing of Sonic on the Master System. I think it appeared in '97 actually on the Master System, '96 on the Game Gear. But there you go. So those were all the Sonics. So let's go back and let's have a bit of a wrap up and have a bit of a talk about what I thought of all of that. So there you go. Those were all the Sonics on the Master System. They're all outing on the Master System in the 1990s, which, interestingly enough, if you think about it, Alex Kidd in Miracle World was 1986, right near the beginning of the Master System's life. And that was the de facto mascot, really, generally considered to be the de facto mascot for quite a few years prior to Sonic appearing. So it's funny to think that Sonic was only really a 90s phenomenon, and on the Master System as well. And like I said before, kudos to Sega for producing this absolutely amazing mascot and still releasing it on the Master System, this absolute money spinner that is obviously still very much a money spinner today. So what did I think of it on the Master System? Well, I'm a big fan of it on the 16-bit systems, the Megadrive and the Genesis. Not so much of a fan of it these days. I do honestly prefer Sonic when it is 2D, and that's not just because, I think that new games aren't any good or anything else like that. Absolutely not at all. I do enjoy some versions of Sonic. Typically, when I enjoy Sonic, it tends to be the side-scrolling versions of it, even the modern side-scrolling versions of it that I like. There's a couple of versions of Sonic that have come out in recent years that I've just found unbelievably frustrating and really not gotten on with. But obviously it's a brand that endures, and we've seen movies for it subsequently, which the kids really love. These early days of Sonic, clearly something very special was happening with those, but that 2D side-scrolling is really where it was at. That's what the game was all about, and it was a competitor to Mario, and an amazing competitor. Sonic always felt so much cooler to me. I love Super Mario Brothers. I love all other Super Mario Brothers games, most of them anyway. But Sonic for me always felt a bit cooler and a bit trickier, and it just seemed, you know, I loved the speed and you know, that you played it. But of course that was very much the 16-bit experience of Sonic. The 8-bit experience of Sonic was very, very different. Now I remember, as I mentioned before, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the Game Gear, and I really enjoyed that, and I loved the sort of style, and I love the fact that I was playing it on a colour handheld back in the early 90s. I thought that was amazing just on its own. But yeah, I think ultimately the 16-bit versions I do prefer. That said, I think the 8-bit versions on the Master System are still amazing games, and you should absolutely go and check them out if you're able to. They're really good. I think probably the first one is my favourite of the original Master System ones, and I think probably the 16-bit versions, I think my favourite is probably Sonic 2, or possibly Sonic and Knuckles, largely because that's the one that I completed. But yeah, they're all really good games. They're all really good fun to play. The second one is good fun on those little sort of minecart things as well. That's a good laugh in that very first level there. So yeah, overall very, very good. I think they are amazing. I think they really push the capabilities of the Master System. I think they're lovely looking games. They're really pretty. The way that you interact with them and move around is really good. Despite it getting average reviews, I really enjoyed Sonic Chaos as well, because I think, like I said in the review there, if you hadn't played the 16-bit version, that was as close as you were ever going to get on an 8-bit console, so that was really good as well. Sonic Blast, we'll just not talk about that. And Sonic Spinball obviously isn't really, in my opinion, and you know, you may disagree with this, isn't really proper Sonic. It's a pinball game. It just happens to have Sonic in it, and it's quite fun. I like the sort of link to it and the levels and the fluidity of it and everything else. And that's, you know, I'm not criticizing it in any way. I think it's great fun. But you know, if you're talking about Sonic proper, we're talking about the scrolling games. So really interesting to go back and have a look at that. What was also quite interesting, I mentioned before that I'm running this on an emulator, so you can go and check these games out on emulation as well. If you own the cartridges and you don't own the console, obviously go check them out. One thing that's kind of weird is on the Master System, and I kind of want somebody who's a Master System enthusiast to tell me what they think here. The music on the emulated version seems really, really fast, and the music on my Master System seemed really, really slow by comparison. The gameplay was exactly the same, but the background music seemed at a different tempo. Now, I'm not sure whether that's my emulator getting it wrong, or whether my Master System just plays the music really slowly, and that's a bit weird. I don't know. Noticed it last week with Alex Kidd. Noticed it this week with Sonic as well. Seems to be the same, but it doesn't take away from the gameplay at all. The Megadrive version seems to be exactly the same, so that's cool too. So there we go. So that was Sonic on the Master System. Go check it out. 1 and 2, absolutely fantastic. Chaos is quite enjoyable as well. Spinball's really good. Don't even bother having a look at Blast. Terrible, terrible game. And you know, that's my opinion, of course. Some of you may play Blast and you may absolutely love it. But I'm going to be in no rush to go and find a Brazilian copy of that anywhere anytime soon. But yes, so that was it for this week. So coming up on the channel, I've got a few things coming up. Obviously, I'm going to be doing the actual full-blown month-with review of the Master System very, very soon, and picking my next console. Now, I did say last week that I was going to pick a handheld, but I realised that actually in April I'm going to be travelling quite a bit, so I'm going to do my handheld review out in the spring after I've travelled, because that seems like the ideal time to do a handheld review. I'm quite tempted to do the Game Gear off the back of having done the Master System, so I'm thinking about possibly, I got the 2600 Plus recently, so I am thinking about actually having something in the living room plugged into the television and doing a bit of a review on that. I think the 2600 Plus is going to be a very different experience review-wise than the Master System, which I'll be honest with you, I'm absolutely addicted to it. It's so good. I've really, really enjoyed this review. So, a bit of a spoiler alert for when I do the full-blown review. What are you going to think about that? Some challenges. I mentioned that I can only use RF with the Master System, which means that I've had to use the emulator to be able to actually play the game. So I've got all the cartridges, with the exception of Blast, which I didn't ultimately play anyway. But yeah, I've got all the cartridges, but I can't plug it into the computer because it uses RF, which is, for those the uninitiated, that's basically what you used to plug into old analog televisions for your video recorder, and you tune it in. That's pretty much what I've had to do on this television behind me here. It's tuned into the analog signal of the Master System 2, but it's been fine. What I have to remember to not do is get distracted by it, because it is just sitting here, and I also work in this space, so I have to sort of unplug it and make sure it's. I don't think I'll just have a quick 5 minutes on that, because that would be fatal. But yeah, so that's my Master System review coming up as well. Other things, we've also got a Porsche challenge. So the Porsche challenge on the PS1 is the current lap time challenge. Go check out my V Rally one if you haven't done already, and everybody else's as well. Thank you, Retro Red Steve, for organising those. And I think that is probably it for now. I think yeah, I think that's all the things that I've got certainly that I've got plans coming up anyway. If there's anything you'd like to see, of course, just let me know in the comments. If there's any kind of consoles you want me to have a look at, or any games you want me to have a look at on the Master System, if I own them, I will certainly have a look at them. There's just been so many good games, and there's just not enough time to review them all. So, yes. All right, then. So, that is it for this week. Thank you so much for watching, as always. And also, if you do enjoy these, I would really appreciate that, hitting that like button and the subscribe button. Obviously, you know, if you want to, do really appreciate it. I appreciate your support on that as well. It's been quite a year so far. I can't believe it's almost been a year. It's only a couple of months away, and I've been doing this for a whole 12 months, which I'm still a noob. Don't get me wrong. You know, I'm still getting some kit. But yes, it's been great. So thank you. Yeah, hit that like and subscribe, as I said before. That's it for today. So until the next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you around. Bye for now.